I would like to combine my words of congratulation and commendation with some words of inquiry and challenge. What is the eventual place and purpose of the IB in developing societies and in a Muslim context? What can those worlds contribute to the IB community? And how can institutions which are rooted in different cultural traditions best work together to bridge worlds that are too often widely separated? As a point of departure in addressing these questions, I will turn to those words from my grandfather, which were quoted in two earlier Peterson lectures. Included them in a speech he gave as President of the League of Nations in Geneva some 70 years ago. They come originally from the Persian poet Sa'di, who wrote, "The children of Adam, created of the self-same clay, are members of one body. When one member suffers, all members suffer likewise. O thou, who art indifferent to the suffering of the fellow, thou art unworthy to be called a man." You will readily understand why such words seem appropriate for a Peterson lecture. They speak of the fundamental value of a universal human bond, a gift of the Creator, which both requires and validates our efforts to educate for global citizenship. I would also like to quote an infinitely more powerful statement about the unity of mankind, because it comes directly from the Holy Quran, and which I would ask you to think about. The Holy Quran addresses itself not only to Muslims, but to the entirety of the human race, when it says, "O mankind, be careful of your duty to your Lord, who created you from one single soul, and from it created its mate, and from them twain has spread abroad a multitude of men and women." These words reflect a deeply spiritual insight, a divine imperative, if you will, which in my view should undergird our educational commitments. It is because we see humankind, despite its differences, as children of God and born from one soul, that we insist on reaching beyond traditional boundaries as we deliberate, communicate, and educate internationally. The IB mission statement puts it extremely well: to encourage students across the world to become active, compassionate, and lifelong learners who understand that other people, with their differences, can also be right. The IB community has thought long and hard about what it means for students to become powerfully aware of a wider world and to deal effectively with both its bewildering diversity and its increasing interdependence. The IB program has wrestled vigorously with one of the basic conundrums of the age: how to take account of two quite different challenges. The first challenge is the fact that the world is increasingly a single place, a wondrous web of global interaction, cutting across the lines of division and separation, which have characterized most of its history. This accelerating wave of interdependence is something we first defined as internationalization when the IB program was launched 40 years ago. We refer to it now as globalization. It brings with it myriad blessings and serious risks, not the least of which is the danger that globalization will become synonymous with homogenization. And why would homogenization be such a danger? because diversity and variety constitute one of the most beautiful gifts of the Creator. And because a deep commitment to our own particularity is part of what it means to be human. Yes, we need to establish connecting bonds across cultures, but each culture must also honor a special sense of self. The downside of globalization is the threat it can present to cultural identities. But there is also a second challenge, which is intensifying in our world. In some ways, it is the exact opposite of the globalizing impulse. I refer to the growing tendency toward fragmentation and confrontation among peoples. In a time of mounting insecurity, cultural pride can turn too often into an endeavor to normatize one's culture. The quest for identity can then become an exclusionary process, so that we define ourselves less by what we are for and more by what we are against. When this happens, diversity turns quickly from a source of beauty to a cause of discord. I believe that the coexistence of these two surging impulses, what one might call a new globalism on the one hand, and a new tribalism on the other, will be a central challenge for educational leaders in the years ahead.